can we maybe talk a little bit, Ben, about how what you're building is really unique and it is really building on things that like couldn't exist before blockchain?
I think that one of the interesting gaps, I think, right now is that you have all these communities that worth, tens, hundreds, sometimes more than that, millions of dollars, and they can cryptographically prove that they own every piece of their existence on the internet, but the layer in which they are coordinating is like Web3 Discord, but I would challenge that, really pushing forward, what does it mean, the ownership of a town square? What does it mean where you can actually take entitlements like read and write, put that on chain, and actually open business models that are, philanthropy, for example, is a way that we as human in society allow other people to pay for access, and people go and they donate money and they contribute to their community, but they also get a seat at the table. Yeah, and I agree with what you said earlier about Web3 social. I think that the first wave was, I kind of want to look at girls' albums, and that's voyeuristic, very primal about mating. And I do agree that economic incentives could be, which is another, about safety.
Very cool, yeah. And I mean, speaking of, incentives, I saw a really interesting Twitter post earlier this week from StemsDAO and Rave tickets. So I heard that you guys ran a competition of remixing of a very good friend of mine who's a journalist at CNBC. And
Kenzie?
Yeah,
Did she talk?
No, I sent it to her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What did she say?
She was like, I have to call you. So,
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about sort of this intent of trying to produce some virality and getting people's attention and what they might be into.
Yeah, I think this is a great example for incentives. So for context, we basically took a sample from a reporter who was talking about Rave and DeFi degens needing to get loose. We basically partnered with Rave. It was their idea to do a challenge to sample that vocal and make a song or anything that's like over 30 seconds to a minute to get Rave tickets. And we got like 30 to 40 submissions, which is a lot more than we expected. But yeah, it's basically the idea behind doing this stuff on chain is that a lot of those posts are actually on Lenster, or via the protocol, so you can see them on other platforms. And so you can verifiably know which address participated, and then you can have mechanisms like votes that are very easy to streamline. And so you think of trends like TikTok, like the kind of stuff that happens on TikTok, like, I don't know if people here remember the Wellerman song, like the sea shanty thing, which had really blown up a year ago or a couple years ago. And you add the blockchain to that, so you can basically tie back all the derivative things to the original post. You can reward the original person that made it. The song, like recording right owner, can be involved in the splits also. And basically, we like incentives like giving Rave tickets or giving a prize to someone who makes a remix is just a way to get the thing started. But the idea is at a certain scale, just participating and having traffic is enough to either via NFT volume or some form of tokenomics to just drive activity around that.
Yeah, and I think this brings us back to the interesting topic that ultimately, like, people are seeking for like community, adventure, excitement. And so I would love to hear more about the concept of this owning a town square.
Well, basically, town square has, you have the idea of like who owns it, like who actually owns this space that 10,000 people come into. Oh, no, I mean, a town square, it's what would be like a big Telegram group or like a Discord server. Yeah. That's it has ownership, which is very much generalized across the platform, and it's not really ownership; it's just who has the credentials. And then you got moderation, and then you got reputation, you got privacy, and then there's another part that is like the economic activity that is not really represented there. And all of these elements, if you think about what it means to, if you could compose them, for example, if you could have the moderation of a town square being held by a smart contract that assigns on the fly who is the moderator based on their activities on chain, right? If you voted in the last 3 votes and you hold this amount and you do this action, then you're automatically a moderator. And everybody can look and see that these are the rules in which why some people get more influence than others on the place we communicate. Another question is like, who owns this place, right? Can you sell it on OpenSea? And what does that mean? So that's kind of
what I like about the model here described is like the town square is actually not a physical space for sure.
Metaphorical.
But not even a virtual place in a single place. Like it's a smart contract. It's not a Discord, it's not a Telegram, it's basically a smart contract. And so that means exactly what you just said about Lens. Multiple application can surface and show the town square to different people. And maybe we are in the same community.
Yeah.
We are using the same town square contract, and I assume that's what we're discussing here, but we're also using different applications to interact together through the contract. And to me, that's kind of the power of Web3 social is it's not about single applications, it's not about platform themselves, it's about actually smart contracts that are normalizing, I don't know what the right word is, but regulating how we interact together and setting the rules of how we work in the DAO context, like how we contribute valuable content, valuable interactions, how other people can contribute these, and what kind of information gets leveraged by what kind of application in there. And so it's not a place. I mean, for me, it's like we're never going to see like the Web3 Discord or the Web3 YouTube. It's going to be a lot of different places. Basically, they're going to emerge and all going to be connected through the same smart contract, and to which we're going to connect through our wallets.
Yeah, no, that's definitely really, really interesting. I mean, that takes me to sort of my next question, which is, you were one of the early pioneers of effectively like verifiable credentials, right, through ticketing and memberships, right?
Yes.
And how do you think those interacting with like the potential social graphs that are becoming, possible today?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be multiple social graphs as there's always been. I think they're going to have different versions of this. I do think the membership graph, which is what group I'm a member of, is going to be a useful one. So it might be, my school, it might be my hometown, it might be some online community that I'm a member of. It might also be, my local gym. And so that is not a social graph. It doesn't necessarily have me and friends linked together, but it's a very useful interest graph about me individual and about the community that I'm in at the same time. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to pioneer at Unlock. This morning, Evan made a very interesting comment about the fact that our social activities tend to decay, and the existing social network, like the Web2 world, actually doesn't have this. Like most of my Facebook stream right now is like friends from high school that I haven't seen in 17 years. And I probably don't care about what kid they have or what town they live in at this point. And yet it's all there in Facebook, and Facebook keeps showing this to me.
There's a filter. You can replace the baby photos with like puppy photos.
I wouldn't do that because I have babies as well. But like it's not just about the babies. I should make it clear. I have kids, so if my kids listen, I love you guys. But it's about the fact that these social relationships decay, and I think one of the things that we need to start thinking a lot about inside of the Web3 space as well is the idea of decaying tokens. I don't know if that makes sense, but like NFTs with expiration dates, which is what the kind of thing we do, or maybe even like contracts that have balances of token that reduces over time or something like this that would show the fact that you might not be the most engaged person in your community anymore or something like this.
Okay, really great. And something that we're looking like towards is actually like mass adoption of this kind of technology. And Ben, it seems like you were building something that is really meant to interact with existing platforms, right? Where you're adding a smart contract layer to activities or interactions, behaviors that people already have in their regular lives. So how do you think about onboarding like non-crypto native people onto this technology?
we're building a really beautiful client, and we're really going to focus on owning your town square as the message, on speaking about why everywhere else you're just renting, and we're going to make the experience of minting your space delightful thing that my mom can do, and I don't think they're going to know that there's smart contracts behind it, or at least not what I'm expecting. Yeah, I think a lot of my work where my teams found success was where we took it used to be really hard to for the average user to understand how they're going to stream live to the internet. There was a bunch of platform, but then we kind of used that Twitter API graph, and we made it like one button, and you can go live to Twitter. And then they shut down the graph, which is why I'm excited about Lens, But then that forced us to think about other ways of how can we create spaces that are forming almost magically without people understanding how it is that we put them together. With House Party, setting up a call is actually an annoying thing that nobody wants to FaceTime someone. And House Party has actually abstracted a lot of this and made it kind of a delightful way to all of a sudden talk to two of your friends, and without really trying to create a Google Meet and send a calendar. And I'm very much intent to do the same thing here. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I heard fun things about House Party. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people were sort of exploring with alternative ways of connecting, and I think it really accelerated the adoption that we have for a lot of this technology. I mean, my 96-year-old grandmother learned how to use Zoom, and so I think that you are totally spot on that. Sometimes if the technology is compelling enough, then people start to play around, and as long as the UX is accessible, then it welcomes them.
I actually think the opposite. Yeah, I think that the UX need to be compelling, and you're like, how the fuck is this happening? Yeah. And then you don't really ask more than that. Most people, right, outside of this room. But what enables this is actually the exciting technology, But I think that not everybody is as curious,
I didn't mean the technology itself. I meant if the use case, right? It was she's alone and she wants to talk to her family.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
Okay, she can get onto something, and if she has to use Linux, then she's definitely not making it
exactly.
there. So Zoom is right on the level where you're okay, yeah,
exactly.
I can do this.
Yeah, and with House Party, you just open the app.
I'm so interested by Vitalik's perspective of we solve cost of transactions and speed. We're there. I'm no, we're not there yet. We're better off and we're ready, but then we still need entrepreneurs like yourselves to start thinking about what is that use case that's going to compel people to want to step into that space. Let's talk a little bit about music NFTs. I've been hearing a lot about them for a while, and then no one was really doing very much about it. And then now I've seen a recent wave of actually pretty cool music NFT projects. Can you give us a little bit of context as to sort of what you've been seeing in that space and how it's evolved and why it's so hot right now?
That's a very broad question. The space has been, I would say it had its peak. It was peaking about 6 months ago, actually.
Okay.
And right now, there's a lot of fundraising announcements, which doesn't necessarily mean that they happened right now. Also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think a lot of the projects do you have examples in mind?
No, I came across a lot of people at DevCon who were talking to me about their music NFT projects, initiatives, and creators. So maybe it's probably just the bubble I'm living in.
But I would say, from what I'm understanding of the space currently, and I think it's take it with a grain of salt because there's no real project that completely figured it out, I would say. But there's a bunch of different approaches. You can think of music production, it's kind of a stack, right? Music production, music consumption, distribution in the middle, and there's projects that are popping up all across. There's on-chain DAWs, kind of Ableton on-chain. There's projects that are just dropping songs, the same exact songs as the ones you'd find on Spotify, as NFTs. And then there's protocols like building kind of the infrastructure for creators underneath. And then there's varying views between copyrighted songs and CC0, which means unlicensed, like going fully for license-free music. Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about, but I don't think anyone actually fully figured it out in a way that is natural, like not VC funded or like not kind of because the PFP NFTs, like the visual NFTs, have a good use case as collectible art, and it's very easy to so you can wear them, like you can put them in your Twitter picture.
The Wu-Tang Clan did collectible music, right?
Yeah.
For one person.
Yeah, and but like for instance, if it's a song and you're trying to collect it, it's hard to wear a song, right?
Yeah.
It's not quite something like there's vinyl collectors and there's a supporting the artist component, so it's still a form of collectible. But I think it needs more of an ecosystem around, and it's more of a listening and producing driven activity. Like music is mostly made to listen to and to make, as opposed to like just collect and showcase in a gallery.
It's meant to be experienced, not put on a shelf.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
One thing that I like about the NFT music space, and I know nothing about music, is the fact that there's a lot of experimentation going on. Like there's a lot of people trying weird stuff. Maybe most of it doesn't make much sense, but that's how actually use cases are going to emerge. Like it's not like all of a sudden we get the right UX and we get the right thing to do. It's really about kind of iterating and building, again, things that look weird at first, and then okay, maybe we can smoothen a couple things here and there, and that starts to eventually become a product. One criticism that I would make to a lot of people in that space, like we don't play enough with our own toys. Like dog fooding is a term that I use a lot. I fancy creating a dog fooding DAO at some point, but really I want you all to make sure that you have a crypto wallet in your pocket, that you're using it to as much as possible pay for stuff when you can, get tickets as NFTs, buy some stupid stuff online just for the sake of playing with it, experimenting, learning for yourself, hopefully also making valuable lessons for people that are building the application on the side that will learn from that data. Because that's how we're going to end up in a situation where it becomes obvious to your grandmother or to my kids when they start using this, because we've over and over used, improved, made mistakes to something that looks as easy as the web today. One joke that I mean, it's not a joke, one story that I tell often, and I think most people in the room are probably too young to remember, but the first time I connected to the internet, I had to go buy a modem, plug it into my PC, which was already pretty weird, then plug that modem into the telephone line, which doesn't make any freaking sense to anybody who's less than 25 at this point. And then the computer would make weird noises, like, and then you'd be connected, but you wouldn't do anything. So compare this to like, okay, I'm using Zoom and connecting and chatting with my grandmother who is in the other side of the world. It took us 25 years to come to this smooth internet that we have. I hope it doesn't take us 25 years to do the same thing with crypto, so we better start experimenting and kind of removing the friction by actually doing things and playing with our own toys as much as possible.
That's really great, Julien. We have a few minutes left, so with that, I wanted to wrap up with a final question for all of you, hot topic question. And that would be, tell us about one really cool Web3 social app that you're into right now, and two, what you think is something awesome that needs to be created or is being created or you are creating that is sort of signaling towards the future. So
I'll start with the second question. So you were mentioning the kind of decay of Web 2, like Facebook, Instagram. It's not discovery oriented, and there's also I mean, a similar thing can be observed with Uniswap and all these things that did airdrops. Like there's this concentration that comes at the beginning, and I think one of the ways against this stagnation in Web3, like for social specifically, is curation mechanisms, and that's kind of growing a lot within protocols that like. And so I would say for Lens in particular, Lens protocol, even for us. Thinking of ways like Stems, the platform, thinking of ways to use the community or like leverage the community that is making music and that is listening to music to just keep the kind of content relevant to the community in the present, and then thinking of ways in the far future if we release a token to have that token be dynamic, like not stagnating at the initial people that had it, and have some form of dilution mechanism after a certain amount of time.
Cool Web3 social thing that I'm playing. I play with Farcaster, I play with Lens. These are all pretty early stage projects, but I think these are cool experiments around this. I still want to see kind of more multiplayer-like kind of experiences. I'm going to mention Reddit. Everybody knows of Places. I think they did it again this year. First time they did it was in 2013, I guess, which is kind of a multiplayer game where anybody would basically, paint a pixel on a big board and people would draw different things. I think this is the kind of thing that is social, multiplayer, and I think Web3 could see some of these things. As a matter of fact, at Unlock, we're building, as a side project, a fun little project, Conway's Game of Life. I don't know if people know what that is, but it's kind of a cool a simulation of cells basically multiplying and living. And we're doing this as an NFT project, which we hope we'll release again as a side project for fun. But I'm trying to see more people build these kind of multiplayer kind of experiences in a way that is, again, smart contract based. So there's multiple UIs, multiple front end that can be created to surface information and maybe have people play with different tools on the same game.
The coolest project I've seen so far is something called biomes.gg. It's basically a massive multiplayer game. They took Minecraft and they put all the stuff of Minecraft like on chain. So like you harvest things and you build things, and then you can take whatever you build and like mint it as a thing that you can sell. And it works both with Solana and Ethereum. And I thought it was like, wow, like this is so cool. So that's the coolest thing I've seen so far. I just thought the delight of playing it and how deep they went, and it just like, it was very nice. And what was the other question?
Where do you see things going? Tell us
Where I think it's going?
where you think it's going, or something awesome that's being created or that needs to be created.
I think we need more people who are crypto optimistic but not crypto dogmatic. I found so many talented, smart people just die on the hill of making every single thing like pure. And if you want to build to, a lot of people, then you should give the compassion that humans are not pure and they're not perfect. That means that in a very perfect way, your creation should not be perfect.
And with that, we conclude this very perfect panel. Thank you, everyone.